is like a base mesh, sort of representative of what you would receive as an artist. Usually you'll get a proto mesh, which would have more bevels so that what you're looking at is not so hard edged. And the proto mesh is used by designers in Engine so that they can place things to scale and create a level. And so you're going to take that and either use it to create a high poly and go from there, or which you'll do 99% of the time is you'll remake the high poly from scratch and just use the proto as kind of a scale reference. In this case, we're going to use this low poly mesh here as our base mesh and create the high poly from it. So, and we're going to use crease sets to control the weight of the edges, and using the crease sets feature will allow us to create the high poly and then also create the low poly very easily and very quickly. So a quick overview of what we're going to look at is I'm going to show you guys how to create a, let me pull my notes up. I just don't want to hide that message. So I'm going to show you the crease sets window. We're going to duplicate this and create our high poly mesh from the base mesh. I'm going to show you how to create a preview material and work with color management. And then we're going to look at crease weights and viewing distance and kind of like how to read the mesh and set it up for reading well in a game engine. And then we'll talk about a couple of weird features, not features, but like oddities of how the feature works. And then we're going to make a floater at the end with crease sets as well. And then we can do a Q&A at the end. And I might check in every few minutes just to make sure the mic is working, although I can hear some background noise, which is good, I think. You guys still with me?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. Let's do this for real now. All right. So Crease Sets Editor is in Windows, Modeling Editors, and Crease Sets. And so this is a floating window. It's for some reason, it does not dock like our channel box and our outliner. Just a heads up, it just doesn't work. So I just tend to keep mine kind of tucked away over here in the bottom left corner. It is resizable, but not dockable, maybe in the future. But for now, we'll work with this like this. So I tend to convert piece by piece going front to back. Sometimes bottom to top, but let's go front to back here with this main piece. So I've got my my reference here in the background, and we're just going to go ahead and make this into a high poly mesh. So let's solo that. So first thing we want to do when we work with crease sets is we work with our with Maya's sub D. So hit 3 on the keyboard, right, to get into your sub D level, and it starts automatically on level 2, and you can increase and decrease sub D level with the page up and page down keys. So page up increases the sub D to level 3. You can see in the attribute editor, let's see here in the front shape in the smooth mesh section, as I hit page up and page down, you'll see over here the subdivision level that you're currently on. I typically work in 3. You can go to 4, the max level, although I find that's usually not needed. Sometimes it is, and that's okay, but usually won't need to. 2 is typically not enough. You'll get shading errors, but 3 is kind of the sweet spot. So right off the bat, you can see what's happened when we've smoothed our mesh here. Is we've got all kinds of, like, some good stuff, some ugly stuff. So let's make it all good stuff. So what we want to do is select the edges that we want to control, like this main guy up here, this loop here, and this in here, and then these sort of corner pieces, and then this little inset loop here. And we want to create a new crease set. And when you have edges selected and click new, it'll add those selected edges to a new crease set. You can also create a new crease set without edges selected. Let's just undo that. And let's call this crease set front main. So now let's smooth, and you can kind of see we've got some control going on, but we're gonna need to refine this a little bit. There's still some ugly stuff happening here and some ugly shading happening up here. So the first thing we need to understand when working with crease sets, the crease sets cannot handle what we want it to do all by itself. We still need to use support loops. So I'm going to use the multi-cut tool, Control Shift X, and then hold Control to insert a loop and just add a loop, a support loop here, down over here, and I think we're going to need one here too to support this edge. And I think up here. And let's look at that. Okay, we're getting there. Still got this funkiness over here. So let's add a loop here and a loop here. Okay, so we're kind of mostly there. Edges are looking a little crispy though, and it's kind of hard to read with the default Lambert material. So I would highly recommend replacing this with a different material. I like to use the Blinn, and this is just for preview. This is not going to be part of the bake. It's not going to be part of our texture set. That's way down the road. This is just for previewing. So I like to use a Blinn because it's got some nice reflectivity options, and also turn off the view transform up here so that we disable color management. So you get this nice kind of dark gray by default, and maybe dial that up just a little bit. And for the specular color, you can see like on this edge here, you can make this whatever color you want. I tend to go for like a blue. Pink and red can work well, but I kind of like having a little blue highlight there. Just helps you kind of read, like preview how these edges are going to read in a game engine. And so, yeah, this is looking way too tight. One thing I would say also, is we're going to dial in these edge weights real quick. If you look at the not the concept, it's not a concept. If you look at the reference image, you can see in real life this edge is pretty tight. But when we're working in game engines, typically, and this can vary from art style to art style, you need it to be looser so you can read these edges so they don't alias as much. So let's dial in our crease weight here. So in the Crease Sets editor, we've got our crease weight. The larger the number, the tighter the crease. The smaller the number, the looser the crease. And you can go down to like 0.1. I wouldn't recommend going any tighter than maybe 3.5. I like to start off usually around 1.4. It's kind of a nice loose kind of number. And this shows you how many edges you have in the crease set. And then selected will tell you how many of the edges are selected. But the number you really want to focus on is the crease value here. This is kind of the key. And so it's looking a little tight, actually. Let's dial that down to 1.2. And I'm just typing in numbers on my keyboard. You can also grab your middle mouse button and pull left and right to change the number in real time. This is kind of a nice, actually, I'm liking that. I'm liking it down more like 0.8. Yeah, that's looking better. And this is kind of the key too, is like how to read it. You really want to look at your object, whatever you're modeling, excuse me, sort of from the distance, like how you would look at it in the game. And you really want to make sure, like, so this is like a monitor. This would probably be a prop in the background sitting on a table somewhere. You want to make sure these edges, because those are going to bake into the normal map, you want to make sure those are readable. So for example, if you had this, you know, cranked up to like 2, that just looks like a hard edge, right? As you're getting farther away. And that's not good. Like, it's okay when you're up here if it's a hero asset. Odds are a prop like this ain't going to be a hero asset. So you really want to kind of err on the side of looser, if that makes sense. So let's stick with 0.8 for right now. So we've got this one crease set. Now, obviously, one size doesn't necessarily fit all. So you can see like the crease here and here, it looks different. And I want to actually control this with a different crease set. So let's go ahead and select these edges. And do here. All right. And let's create a new crease set. Let's call this front. I don't know, what did I call this last time? Secondary, whatever. All right, look at that. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. I think actually I need an edge loop, support loop inside there. Okay, that's good. What am I missing? It's like a loop here. That's fine. Yeah, that's looking a little bit better. Still a little bit rounded there. Is that? That's on a support loop. Okay, yeah, that's looking pretty good. If we put the screen on, yeah, the screen kind of intersects. It'll bake in anyways, kind of like that. Oh, you know what? Let's actually add let's put that blend material on all of these. There we go. All right, so we're kind of dialing in. We kind of dialed this in. I think that's maybe a little crispy. Let's drop this down to like 1.8. There we go. That's kind of doing it. A little more. 1.6. Yeah, there we go. That's kind of the sweet spot. All right, and in fact, I think even like these interiors, these little guys, I'm gonna actually put those on their own crease set. I think those need to be tighter. So kind of the general rule is something to keep in mind is creases on the inside, like insides of corners, you kind of want those to be tighter and outside looser. So let's create a new one. We'll call this front tight. And let's dial this up to like 2.2. Yeah, there we go. So we're getting kind of a little indent there. And you want to make sure like you want to be able to read the indent from far away. So you can kind of see how the light hits it there. I might even crank that up a bit actually to like 2.4. That's looking a little better. It's still a little rounded. I'm not super stoked on that. So I think what I need to do is this support loop I think is a little far away. So if we select the loop, go to the select tool, or excuse me, the move tool. If I hold Control and Shift, it'll slide the edge loop on the geometry without moving the geometry. So I can just kind of place this closer to the edge there. And then should be it's a little bit tighter. All right. And so I could put a support loop here like this, although that's going to affect the way that smooths. That's actually not bad. It's actually okay. Yeah, it's fine. All right, cool. We'll go with that. Let's get another support loop here. Okay. And actually, that's a little bit crispy now. A little bit crispy. 1.4. No, that's good. That's good. Those little inner, you want to be able to like have that catch the light and read like that. So that's looking okay. All right, so then I would just kind of take this and move on to another piece. You guys still with me?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, it's working. Okay. So let's do that to this guy. Looks like I jacked this up. Can you guys see that? How this sort of dips in? I don't want that. I want this to be a straight line. So let's go ahead and fix this. So just grab these edges, select those edges, and hit Control Delete on the keyboard, and that'll delete the whole thing. And then let's redo the edge flow. Actually, I don't like that edge flow going this way. I want to have it go this way. So Control Shift X to the multi-cut, and then I'll hold Control Shift and click so that it's proportional. It's like on the same. Oh gosh, I don't even know what would be the right word. The same axis, the same level. Hit Enter. All right, so that's cool. Okay, that's looking better. All right, so let's go ahead and just select the whole thing and add a new crease set. We'll call this back main, and then 3 page up. So this obviously is going to need some support loops here. I don't think we'll want 2. We can just drop this to like 1.6. Now, I would note, even though multiple crease sets might end up with the same value, I would keep these as separate crease sets because this gives you more flexibility down the road. Because the reality is your art director or your art lead might say, hey, this edge over here is too crispy. I need you to loosen it. And if this edge and this edge are on the same crease set, you're gonna have to break those up anyways. But if you've got these already laid out on separate crease sets, AD can be like, yeah, loosen that up. Boom. All you got to do is just change the value. 0.7, bam, done. So highly recommend organizing on separate crease sets. So let's get some edge loops in here. Again, multi-cut tool, hold control to pop the loop in. Bam, bam, boom. Let's see, what are we missing? Up here, up here. All right. Oof, super crispy, super crispy. Let's drop that down. Okay, yeah, it's looking a little bit better. I might want it to be a little bit softer because again, it's more like how it reads in the game than how it is compared to real life. But it depends on the game. So what we also want to look for is kind of consistency. So if we decide to go in a direction, we want this tightness to kind of be similar to this. It looks like they're kind of in the same ballpark. This is looking a little kind of soft. Now, it could be the object should be like that, but I don't know. So let's grab this loop and again, Control Shift and just slide that down. So the closer these support loops are to the main edge, the tighter that will be, the more it will support it. So that, I think we want that consistency from here to there. That's looking better. Yeah, that's looking more in the ballpark. I still think it's a tiny bit tight, but we went, yeah, it's looking pretty consistent. Okay, we're gonna go with that. We're gonna go with that. Yeah, you can still kind of read that here. You can see that edge. That should work pretty nicely. All right, so we got the back. Okay, so let's move on to this support piece down here. And this, let's just grab the whole thing and create another group. We'll call this bottom main. So hit 3, page up. Now, obviously, we don't want to crease these loops because we want this front face to be nice and rounded. So I'm going to go ahead and select these and then remove those from the crease set. So this nice curved front here. Now you can see we've got some shading errors here. Those will bake in, so we don't want that. So we need to get some support loops in, but we don't want support loops going here like this, because if we do that, you kind of see that. Oh, can't really. Should create, yeah, we don't want these flat faces because that's gonna create like a segmented thing. So what we're gonna do instead is delete those. Let's select all these faces and then use the scale tool, Control Shift. Oops. What am I doing wrong? Control Shift. No, sorry, not Control Shift, just Shift to extrude. And then and just create a support loop around there. Now you can also do, go ahead.
Yeah, one question. Why do you keep those faces on the top? It's kind of wasted, I think.
What do you mean?
I mean, this part comes on the bottom of the television, so you're not gonna see the face on the top, right?
Oh yeah. That's a good question. I think so. You're saying because you won't see them in here. Correct.
Yeah.
Got it. So I'm keeping them because I would bake this in to its own piece. So for the low poly mesh, when we get there, certainly all of these, like all of these top faces, including these guys, would be deleted. And so the low poly mesh would just clip into this top piece here. But we're going to bake in that separation so that it looks like when you bake it that you have a little indent here, if that makes sense. And so to do that, we need this to be its own piece with the top faces, and we need it to smooth properly. So if you can kind of see, you have this nice little indentation here, and that's going to bake into the low poly, which is why, which is why we're keeping it.
Okay.
So the other way to do this, we could select these faces and Control E to extrude, and then let's hit offset, and then this will give us a nice inset too. So just kind of two ways to do the same thing. Let's see here, that should be better, but we're still a little funky around here. So let's, how did I do this? I think I did this. And then something like that. Let's see here, it's looking better. A little crispy, I don't know. So you're not really gonna be able to see this stuff, but that should bake in pretty nicely right there when you look at it from the side view. I think the other thing I did before is I made sure that this bevel is the same as this, and these are looking okay. Yeah, this is good. All right, we're gonna accept that and move on. So this guy, let's go ahead and again, new crease set. And we're gonna call this bottom main again. Wait, there's a misspelling. Bottom main and bottom main 1. Oh, because this should be stand main, not bottom main. Let's see, 1.5, and then page up. Okay. So then we're gonna remove these guys, these loops, so that we get this smooth edge again. Remove that. Excellent. Okay, looking okay. Oh, forgot one. All right, so this can get a little tricky with adding support loops to meshes like these, but you can see there's kind of a shading error here, but we can fix this. And so we're gonna use the multi-cut tool to insert a loop here and here, and then we're gonna manually connect these guys, little support loop around the edge. And I would say, you know, when you're doing hard surface stuff, don't worry about the vertices being the exact same distance from an edge. Like you can have a little bit of organic kind of difference, and I think in some ways it'll help the overall look slightly more natural. And there's give or take for that. I mean, sometimes you want to dial in the exact distance, but sometimes, yeah, I would say don't obsess over it. That's something I had to kind of learn, and I would say learn that lesson as soon as you can. Just get those verts in there and get it moving. So this is looking pretty good. You guys still with me?
Yep.
Excellent, cool. All right, so this is looking good. This is looking a little funky. So let's fix that. Let's add a loop here and a loop here, and then let's do a support loop around here, just for fun. And there. All right. Okay, that's looking better. Yeah, that's kind of acceptable. So the way this piece is, I don't know, I would sort of argue, and you know, I'm not 100% sure how this actually connects on the real thing. I think if we were really doing this, I'd probably have this little stand connector piece and the main base be two separate meshes, and then you can kind of like bake in the intersection. But for this demonstration, I think this is fine. This is looking okay. Yeah, it might connect up into the bottom too. Yeah, that's cool for now. All right, so we've got kind of our main pieces, and I just kind of want to give it like a once over. Make sure it's sort of still readable at distance. And I'm seeing like this is maybe looser. The bottom, these bottom bevels are looser than this stuff. So depending on the direction we want to go, I think I want to kind of match the crease weight here to the others. So this would be stand main. So let's tighten that up a little bit. Hit 1.8, there we go. So it's looking a little more similar. Kind of want to loosen like this is looking actually a little tight. I kind of like the way these creases look. So that was front main. Let's do like a 0.4. Yeah, there we go. That's it. And then back to back main. That should be maybe like 0.8, maybe even a little bit looser. Yeah, there we go. So you want these edges to be nice and readable. And so that way you have a normal that'll stand up to when you MIP, when you're like super far away from this thing in the engine, when it's a small prop off in the background. Because that's the life of a prop artist. Your stuff won't normally be front and center, but you still want it to look good. Yeah. All right, so let's add some detail stuff. So I want to add this guy, this inset, and then I want to add these this grill over here. So there's a couple ways to do this, and you know, there's not really like, you can do this whatever way works. It doesn't really matter. You can use a floater or you can model it in. For line work like this, usually I like to model it in, sometimes a floater, but for this demo, I think I'm gonna model this in and then do a floater for this guy to kind of show you guys both techniques and how you use crease sets to control those. But if you wanted to do this inset as a floater, you could. If you wanted to model this in, you could, but I think that'd be kind of a lot of work. Anyway, so for the inset, let's go ahead and insert an edge loop kind of roughly where we want it to be, which maybe it's there. Maybe let's push it back a little bit. So Control Shift to slide that. That's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna leave this selected and then Control B to bevel it and change the fraction to the width I want. Now, kind of the same thing. This is the same concept. Your insets and your cuts for game art, you typically want to be a little bit wider, a little bit softer than you would in real life. Just the way you want your edges to be a little bit softer, just kind of so they read better. So I'm going to make this like slightly wider than the reference, like not a whole lot, but wait, no, not that much. I think I want 0.12. Yes, not 1.2. Just so it'll bake in a little bit better and read a little bit better. We can change this later on. So to create this, let's select this entire loop, use the scale tool, and then let's grab this singular axis over here, hold Shift to extrude, and just pull in a little bit. And I think I went a little too far, but that's okay. I'll just move that back out. Okay, that should be pretty good. So this is going to bake in. We kind of want this to maybe be a little deeper than it normally would be. So you get that nice deep bake. And then let's select these edges. And we're going to create another group, another crease set. Let's call this front inset. Let's see how this looks. Okay, so getting some error here. So I think we need a support loop there and a support loop there. Getting there, but that, okay, that's looking a little crispy. So let's do maybe like a 1.6. That's looking better. Let's go 1.4 just because. So you'll notice since we've got the outer edges and the inner edges on the same crease set, I think if we back up, to me, the inner edges, like the inside, that doesn't look as defined as I want it to be. It looks a little loose. And I would recommend this for all inner edges is let's get this on its own crease set that's tighter. So let's call this front inset tight. It's a subtle thing, but I think it's important. It'll help it bake better. So if we tighten that up to like 2.2, let's just for visual, let's drop all the way down to like 0.6. So you get that kind of like inner softness, and that's not what we want. We want that softness on the outside, and we want the sort of more defined edge on the inside. That's actually maybe, I think I'm pushing it too far. Let's go to like 1.6. There we go. There we go. There we go. Did I end up at the same values? Almost the same values. Okay. All right, so we got this inset here. That should bake in pretty nicely. Let's make the floater. Let's make this little guy. So there's a couple ways to do this. Why don't I show you both ways? How about that? That'll be a good thing. So you can see we want this floating geometry. And just checking, you guys still with me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So you can see this is kind of angled inside. So if we were to start with a cube, notice the face of the cube is not aligned with this. And so we want our floater to be aligned with this. So there's a couple ways to do this. So one way to do this is to duplicate, Control D to duplicate this geometry, and then select the face you want. Hit Control-Shift-I to invert your selection and hit delete. And then so now we have this new face that's at the exact angle that we want it to be at. And then we can hit Alt-C to center our pivot. So that's one way to do it. I'm gonna just go ahead and hide this, and then I'll show you the other way, which is usually how I prefer to work, but that doesn't really matter. The situation, whatever the situation calls for. So let's create a new cube. I'm going to hit Shift right click and insert via my marking menu. And I would recommend, as a quick aside, learning how to do all of this stuff from the marking menus and hotkeys. Get rid of your shelf up here. It's a waste of screen space. Like shift right click brings up your creation marking menu for all your different geometry types. Shift right click, or excuse me, Control Shift right click brings up your axis orientation and all that stuff. So just a quick aside, I'd recommend that, but you know, work whatever way works best for you. So let's grab this face, Control Shift I to invert and delete. So now we've got this plain face. And I prefer, I don't know why, I like starting from cubes rather than planes. I mean, it's the same difference. You could start with a plane. Let's go ahead and dump the blin on here. So we're going to deal with this angle a little bit later. There's a snap together tool that'll align this. So I'll show you that in a little bit. But first, let's make this shape. So let's kind of scale this down, and I'm just going to sort of fire through this. It might not be as accurate as maybe you would expect if you really had time, but we're just going to kind of burn through it. So I'm thinking, let's do the connect tool. I thought I don't think I have this on a keyboard shortcut right now, but if we go to the modeling toolkit and hit connect, we can choose a number of segments. Let's do like 9 segments, I think would be correct. And hit enter to finalize that. So that should work. And then let's get an edge loop here, an edge loop here. And then let's select every other face. I goofed it. So we'll delete these. Boom, 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 boom. And hold shift to extrude inwards. And again, we're not going for a one-to-one parity, but just sort of a quick mock-up just to show you. Let's get some edge loops protecting in there. Smooth that. Okay, so this is smooth without crease sets, and it's not looking terrible. It's just a little rounded. So let's add a new crease set, and we'll call this, let's call this floater at caps, excuse me. Yeah, floater main. Okay. All right, yeah, now we're getting closer. Little crispy though, so let's dial that down to like 1.4. Yeah, now we're talking. All right. That's looking better. Okay. So obviously you can tell the faces here are not aligned here because you can see the shading. So let's go ahead and fix that. So we're going to use the Snap Align tool. So it's Modify and, excuse me, Snap Together tool. Align tool is a whole different thing. Snap Together tool. And so now we select our face from the floater and then click on the face to the angle to which we want to orient it. Hit Enter. Bang. And now it is perfectly aligned. It did rotate it by 180 degrees, so let's just go to our rotate tool and hold J to snap it, and that'll just turn it around 180 degrees. And so now you can tell visually it's perfectly aligned because you cannot see the edge of the mesh here, although it's just floating on top. So this will bake in to the low poly bake super nicely. We use this all the time for all kinds of details, from screws to insets, bolts, all sorts of stuff, you know, little vent fans and all that. All of these kinds of pieces, you'd want to model these as floaters and then bake them in. Way easier to handle this sort of thing instead of actually modeling that into this would just be a lot more work. Although you could do it, and if you want to do it, go for it. Be my guest. But I'd recommend doing it this way. All right, so we got the crease sets on there. So this, yeah, this whole thing, this is kind of as far as I was going to go with crease sets for here. The last thing I wanted to show you before we do any Q&A, if you guys have any more questions, was how to kind of convert this into the low poly. So let's do that super quick, and then we can maybe do some Q&A if you've got some. So let's grab this and put that in our, I goofed. I forgot to duplicate this. So normally you would take your proto mesh and duplicate it into your high poly mesh, but didn't do that. So that's fine. We'll just go ahead and rename this. We'll call that high, and then we'll rename our layer and call this high. And then, okay, so let's duplicate this for our low and call this low G. And let's hide our high and select all of our low stuff, create a new layer, low layer. Okay, now we're in business. All right, scale cube ref, don't need that. Let's move that up. Oh, I like the high to be above the low because the high is above the low, or should be. All right, cool. So got our low, high is hidden. Excellent. All right, so this is a duplicate of our high poly with all the crease sets. First thing we can do from our low poly is just delete all of our floaters. We don't need any of that stuff since that's all going to bake in. The next thing is just put it back down to subdivision level 1, since this is obviously our low poly. And then we can get rid of all of our crease sets. So let's do F8 to multi-select and then choose edges, select all of our edges at the same time. And you can see all of the crease sets here are highlighted. I think if I try to click remove, yeah, I'd have to go through one by one. So a quick way to do this is to click add first, and then it adds them all to one crease set, and then click remove. So now we have all of our crease sets removed from the low poly mesher. And so now really what we want to do, there's kind of 2 or 3 steps to really turning this into a workable bake mesh and eventual low poly game mesh is we want to delete all of our support loops because we don't need this stuff. So you really just kind of go through here and sort of undo what you did, if you will. Just get rid of all of these support loops. Control delete. We'll delete all of that stuff, and like delete any sort of insets that you made. So it's a little tedious, maybe not the most fun process, but the upside is they pay you money to do this. So you got to do it. Oh, I don't think I mentioned this yet. So the weld tool. If you're on a vertices, I mapped the weld tool, which is target weld. It's over here in the modeling toolkit. Target weld, I mapped it to Alt W because I use this all the time. And then you can just drag a vert onto another vert. And whoops, sometimes you goof up. But anyways, I find this super, super handy. So this is kind of what you do. You turn this into the low poly. Yeah, it's probably a faster way to do this, but I don't know. Getting hands-on with the verts is a good thing sometimes. And so after you kind of delete all of your extraneous edge loops, then you would go in and optimize your geo. And I'll show you a super quick example of what I mean. And I know we're kind of off the crease sets, but the point of showing you this is that this is kind of half the reason why you would use crease sets to make your high poly. It's because then transforming your high poly into this low poly is so easy and so fast. You don't have to remodel your low poly from scratch. It's just super easy. It's just a matter of like deleting these loops and making some kind of optimization modification. So real quick, some of the optimizations you would do, like obviously this loop, all of these verts are just wasted. You don't want that. So you would grab your weld tool and just pinch those off up here. You kind of do this. Actually, the faster way to do it would be to just pinch this one and then select this loop, Control Delete, bam. All right, so you'd kind of do this to all of your extraneous edge loops, if you will. That's actually probably not the best way to do that, but we're just going to leave it there for now. So that's kind of how you would go in and create your low poly, and then from there you would unwrap and bake and paint. And if you want, we could maybe do like another Zoom call down the road for unwrapping and like optimizing UVs and baking and getting like super clean bakes, that kind of pipeline. That's a whole other ballgame. Yeah, for now, that's kind of the whole Crease Sets workflow.